When our office manager told me only authorized staff can use the Keurig after I politely asked for a coffee pod refill, I ordered my own machine, put a sign on it that said "For quiet employees only," and watched her microwave instant coffee all week in furious silence. I've been working at the same midsize insurance agency in Modesto, California for over 7 years. It's a typical office: cubicles, outdated break room, beige walls, and that weird mixture of burnt coffee and paper that somehow becomes the scent of corporate life. We're not some big firm in San Francisco. We're not rolling in money, but we're stable. Most of us are lifers. We come in, do our jobs, keep our heads down, and go home. At least that's how I've always done it. I'm not flashy. I don't gossip. I don't fight for attention in meetings. I do my job, I do it well, and that's it. Which is why it stung so much when our new office manager, Carlene, decided she had a problem with me. Carlene had only been there 4 months when this started. She came from some tech startup in Sacramento and immediately began trying to optimize workflow and restructure team dynamics. She wore power suits like she was auditioning for a reboot of The Apprentice, and she spoke in phrases like, "We need to synergize cross-functionally," like it meant something. I ignored most of her nonsense, but it was clear early on that she didn't like quiet people. She liked loud, ambitious types. People who went to lunch with her. People who praised her little reorgs. I wasn't one of them. The real turning point was the Keurig incident. We had one sad little Keurig in the break room. People brought their own pods. Fair enough, but there was always a communal stash for emergencies, especially for those mornings when you just needed something to get through a meeting. The office used to keep a small box in the cupboard, and the rule was simple. If you used the last pod, you added a new box to the grocery request sheet. I'd put in 2 boxes myself just the month before. So one Thursday morning around 9:15, I walked into the break room, opened the cabinet, and saw the box was empty. No big deal. Carlene was sitting at the table scrolling through her phone with her AirPods in, so I politely said, "Hey Carlene, looks like we're out of coffee pods again. Could you order a refill?" She took one AirPod out, looked at me like I'd just insulted her mom, and said in a clipped voice, "The Keurig is for authorized staff only. If you need caffeine, there's instant in the cabinet." I blinked. I've always used it. I even bought a box a few weeks ago. She didn't even look up. Policies have changed. Only authorized staff. And you're not on that list. That sentence stuck with me. You're not on that list. I didn't even ask who was on the list. I knew. It was her little clique. The ones who laughed extra hard at her bad jokes and updated their LinkedIn every time she hosted a training. I walked out of the break room. My face was hot. I didn't say anything. I just sat down at my desk and pulled up Amazon. That night, I ordered a brand new coffee machine. Not a cheap one either. A nice one. Stainless steel, multifunction, built-in grinder. All the bells and whistles. It even had a timer. I picked up 2 bags of gourmet whole beans from a local roaster and had it all shipped to the office under my name. The next Monday, I came in early, 6:30 a.m. I unpacked the machine in the far corner of the break room, on the old counter nobody used anymore. I cleaned it, filled the tank, prepped the beans, and set a little handwritten sign next to it. "For quiet employees only." Smiley face. No names. No rules. No drama. But the message was clear. By 8 a.m., the smell of fresh coffee drifted down the hallway. People peeked in, curious. I didn't say anything. I poured myself a cup, nodded politely to anyone who passed by, and went back to work. By 9:30, word had spread. People started coming in. People like Jake from accounting, Maria from claims, even old Frank who never talks to anyone. They all poured a cup. They all smiled at me like we were suddenly part of a secret club. Carlene walked in at 10 o'clock. She stood in the doorway like she smelled something foul. "What's that?" she asked. I sipped my coffee and said, "Just a personal machine. Brought it from home." Her eyes narrowed. "You can't just install personal appliances in the break room." "Oh, sorry," I said, "not sorry at all." I checked the employee handbook. It only says no hot plates and space heaters. Coffee makers aren't listed. She didn't say anything. She looked around at the 6 people happily sipping their coffee and staring at her in total silence. She left without saying another word. That entire week, she didn't touch the Keurig once. Because nobody did. Everyone had started using my machine. The next day, she brought in a jar of instant coffee and a travel mug. She microwaved water every morning, sitting in the break room with her watery brown cup of punishment, watching us drink ours in peace. But that was only the start. That week the office felt different. There was this quiet energy, like we were all in on something. The break room became a little haven. Nobody said it out loud, but people lingered longer during coffee breaks. Conversations became easier. Even people who usually stayed to themselves started opening up. Except Carlene. She started showing up later and later, staying in her office more. When she did come out, it was only to hold a clipboard and pretend she was doing rounds, even though everyone knew she was just watching. By the following Monday, my coffee machine had become the unofficial heart of the office. I never said a word about it. I just kept it clean, stocked with good beans, and quietly refilled everything when needed. Sometimes someone would leave a sticky note that said, "Thanks for the coffee," or drop off a bag of beans from their own stash. Carlene, meanwhile, was spiraling. She held a mandatory meeting, that week for all staff. Said we needed to realign office culture and reestablish proper respect for leadership roles. Nobody knew what the hell that meant. The meeting was a disaster. She spent 30 minutes lecturing us about professionalism, cliques, non-sanctioned communal behavior, and the breakdown of organizational hierarchy. It was the most corporate-sounding tantrum I'd ever seen. Then she made a point to say, "We need to remember that leadership decisions, like who has access to what, are made for a reason. Going around those decisions to make your own systems only breeds division." Everyone looked at me. I didn't react. But after the meeting, something strange happened. Two coworkers, Shannon from HR and Russ from underwriting, both came up to me separately and told me they'd been called into one-on-one meetings with Carlene. She asked them if they felt pressured to side with certain coworkers, or if they'd noticed any disruptive personalities trying to undermine authority. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was trying to isolate me, paint me as some kind of passive-aggressive rebel causing unrest. But this wasn't high school, and I wasn't some intern she could bully, so I documented everything. Every time she made a passive-aggressive comment in the break room. Every time she slammed the microwave door. Every time someone told me they had been pulled into an uncomfortable coffee talk with her. I started keeping a running log. Date, time, witness, summary. Then I started taking notes on things people had already been whispering about since she arrived. How she'd cut hours for part-timers without telling them. How she ignored the IT team's request for better equipment. How she denied flexible hours to working moms in the call center. I didn't say a word to her. Not yet. But then she made it personal. 2 weeks later, I got an email from her at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. Subject line: Behavioral review, Monday 10 a.m. No explanation. Just a calendar invite and the subject line. That weekend, I didn't sleep much. I knew she was coming for me. I didn't know how far she'd go, but I knew I had to be ready. So I printed everything. Every note. Every email. Every witness statement coworkers had quietly given me when they realized I wasn't backing down. I even had screenshots from our office chat app where she made sarcastic remarks about people who think coffee makes them popular. Monday came. I walked into her office at 9:58 a.m., holding a folder 2 inches thick. She started talking before I even sat down. "I've received several concerns about your behavior lately," she said. "You've been creating division among the staff. Taking liberties. It's making people uncomfortable." I looked her in the eye. "Who specifically said that?" She blinked. "I can't disclose that." "Then I'll start," I said and opened the folder. I laid out a copy of our employee handbook, pointing to the section on coffee machines and personal items. Then I pulled out copies of the anonymous witness statements. Her emails. The chat messages. The date-stamped notes. She went pale. "I've spoken to HR," I said. "And I haven't broken a single rule. But your behavior has crossed several lines, including creating a hostile work environment." She tried to cut me off. "You don't get to threaten me." "I'm not threatening you," I said calmly. "I'm preparing to submit a formal complaint. But I wanted to give you the courtesy of seeing the documentation first." She stared at the stack of papers like it was poison. I stood up. "Also, I've blind copied our regional director on this email thread, so they'll be expecting a follow-up." I left without another word. That week, everything changed. Carlene didn't speak to me. She didn't speak to most people. She stayed in her office with the door shut. A few days later, her fancy whiteboard calendar came down. Then her desk plants disappeared. By the following Monday, an all-staff email came out from regional. "Carlene is no longer with the company. We wish her the best in future endeavors." No explanation. No farewell lunch. Nothing. Just gone. But the best part? Someone from corporate came in to check on office morale the next week. After a few quiet chats and a walk around the floor, they made an announcement. The company would be installing 2 high-end coffee machines in the break room, paid for by the office budget. No more Keurig. No more authorized staff only. Just coffee. For everyone. That day, Shannon from HR handed me a little gift bag. Inside was a bag of my favorite beans and a sticky note that said, "For the quiet ones who don't back down." I smiled, poured a cup, and finally, enjoyed the taste of calm victory. But it wasn't over yet, because a few weeks later I got a call from someone who used to work with Carlene in Sacramento, and they had a story to tell. The call came on a quiet Wednesday afternoon. I had just finished updating a batch of claim files when my office phone lit up with an unfamiliar number from the 916 area code, Sacramento. "Hello," I answered, cautious. "Hi, is this Dennis?" "Yes," I said slowly. "This is Jordan Keller. I used to work with Carlene. I got your number from Frank in your accounting department. He said you might want to hear a few things." I froze. Frank was an old-timer, quiet guy, never got involved in anything. But I remembered him saying something in passing a while back about Carlene's type. I hadn't thought much of it. Jordan cleared his throat. "I heard she left your office kind of abruptly." "You could say that," I said. "What's this about?" He didn't hesitate. "She pulled the same crap at our place. Different company, same playbook. Claimed authority she didn't have. Created a clique, froze people out. It always started with something small. Access to the supply closet, badge-level crap. But it got uglier. Petty HR reports, whisper campaigns, trying to turn people against each other." My stomach tightened. "She ended up costing one of our guys his promotion," Jordan said. "Falsified a few write-ups, made it look like he wasn't a team player. He was gone within 6 months. Quietly. Never even fought it." "Jesus," I muttered. "Yeah. After she left, she wasn't fired, she just got offered a better opportunity." We pieced it together. But by then, nobody wanted to deal with it. We were just glad she was gone. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because she's applying for a regional HR role at one of our competitors here. My buddy works in recruiting. He saw her name and asked if I knew anything. I didn't even need to ask who the company was. United Mutual. Our biggest regional competitor." Jordan paused. "I thought maybe you'd want to share your experience before she lands in a place where she could do it all over again." "I do," I said quietly. "More than you know." We hung up. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the same thick folder I'd handed to her weeks earlier. I scanned and organized every document, added a cover letter explaining the situation, and included a brief statement about my history with her behavior. I didn't embellish. I didn't rant. I just told the truth. Then I emailed it to Jordan's contact. 1 week later, I got a reply. "Thank you for your submission. After reviewing multiple internal and external references, we've decided to go in a different direction. We appreciate your time." It felt good, but it didn't stop there. About 2 weeks later, Shannon from HR pulled me aside. "We got a call," she said, "from another company asking for a reference check about Carlene. She's still applying around?" I asked. Hard. I didn't say anything. Shannon leaned in. "We're not legally allowed to go into details unless she lists us as a reference. But we can confirm dates of employment and whether she's eligible for rehire." "And?" I asked. "She's not eligible," Shannon said flatly. "That's on record now." I smiled. Then came the twist I wasn't ready for. That Friday, I got a friend request on Facebook from a name I didn't recognize at first, Becca Wiles. It took me a second to place it. Then I remembered Carlene's adult daughter. She had visited the office once during the holidays. Quiet girl. Polite. Nothing like her mother. I didn't accept the request, but I looked through her public profile. Her most recent post said, "Tired of watching toxic people burn every bridge they cross and then act like victims. Some people don't deserve a clean slate. Some people don't change." It had dozens of comments. Some supportive, some vague, but one caught my eye. I always knew the way she treated her team would catch up to her. Just wish she hadn't dragged so many people down along the way. I didn't reply, didn't engage, but I knew what was happening. Carlene's world was unraveling from the outside, too. Still, I wasn't done. Because the thing is, she had humiliated me. Not just with the coffee pod, but with that line, "You're not on the list." So I made a new list. A real one. I called it Carlene Fallout. It wasn't petty. It wasn't cruel. Just a list of the people she had affected, at our office, her old job, and the other places she'd touched. And I started sending emails. Not accusations. just honest accounts. Some people ignored them, but others? They replied with stories. Some worse than mine, some from years back. A former intern, a middle-aged mom she'd pushed out of a team, a guy from tech support she'd embarrassed in front of the whole company over a broken monitor. Little things, but enough little things turn into something big. Soon, I wasn't the only one speaking up. A former coworker started a private Slack group. Survivors of Carlene, they jokingly called it at first. But it became something real. We shared job leads, wrote each other references, even met up once for coffee in Sacramento. No bitterness, just closure. But that's when I found out something else. Carlene had been married to a senior VP of a logistics company based in the Bay Area. Had been. Divorced now. Turns out she'd burned that bridge too. And one of the people in our little group? She used to work for him. She told me everything. Apparently, Carlene had tried to throw her weight around in her husband's company years ago. Tried to get a friend hired, then tried to push out someone she didn't like. Her husband told her to back off. She didn't. They had a major blow-up, and within 6 months, the marriage was over. Quietly, of course. Like always. Everything Carlene touched turned sour. Everything. And the deeper I dug, the more I realized she wasn't just mean. She was dangerous in a slow, rotting kind of way. She planted poison in systems, organizations, relationships. She turned calm offices into battlegrounds. But now there were records, receipts, names, patterns, and I wasn't the only one keeping score. By the time summer rolled around, the ripple effects of what Carlene had done across multiple companies, years, and people had finally caught up with her. I didn't have to lift another finger. The network we built quietly kept growing. One of the guys, Evan, used to be in operations at a property management firm where Carlene consulted years ago. He was the one who dug up the real bombshell. A lawsuit. Small claims court in Yolo County. A former employee, middle-aged man, worked maintenance, had sued the company after being wrongfully terminated. Carlene had been listed in the claim as the person who fabricated 2 disciplinary write-ups against him. The court dismissed the case due to lack of supporting documentation. But the man's deposition had been scanned and uploaded into the public records. Evan found it, sent it to us. In it, the man described the exact same pattern we all knew too well. Subtle targeting, vague complaints, mysterious meetings, silence from HR. The guy was let go just 6 months before retirement benefits kicked in. It wasn't just petty anymore. She'd destroyed real lives. The more I read, the less I saw her as some petty bureaucrat with control issues. She was calculated. She used power like a scalpel, cutting off anyone who didn't feed her ego or fall in line. And she always moved on before the damage showed. But now people were watching. I found out through Shannon that Carlene had tried applying at a staffing agency downtown a few weeks after getting rejected by United Mutual. But something had changed in how these companies responded to her name. She's been flagged, Shannon told me. Not blacklisted. But let's just say she's not getting callbacks. But the part that hit me hardest came from her daughter. Becca messaged me. Not a friend request this time. A direct message. Short. Cold. I don't know what she did to you. But if you're part of this campaign trying to destroy her career, congratulations. It's working. She's been drinking every day. She hasn't left the house in weeks. You win. I stared at the message for a long time. I felt this mix of things, relief, guilt, anger, pride, and a little ache I couldn't shake. I didn't reply right away. In fact, I waited a few days. Then I typed something simple. She did it to herself. I just told the truth. No reply. A week later, I heard from Jordan again. Carlene had shown up at a local industry event in Sacramento, probably hoping to network, claw her way back in. But she wasn't on the list. They wouldn't let her in. Security had been briefed. She stood outside for 20 minutes, waiting, before finally walking off into the parking garage. Alone. But the final blow didn't come until late August. A podcast episode dropped on a small HR podcast based out of Fresno. Not a big one, maybe a few thousand listeners. But they ran a segment about toxic leadership patterns and brought on an anonymous guest who used to work in regional HR compliance. The guest described someone shockingly similar to Carlene. The stories were eerily aligned, down to the way she controlled access to coffee machines, believe it or not. She never used her real name, but it was obvious. It went a little viral in our circles, and it made its way to her daughter, because I got one more message from Becca. I listened to that podcast. I think I understand now. I grew up thinking my mom just had bad luck. But now I think she's been running from her own messes all my life. I'm sorry she treated you like that. I really am. That one got to me. I wrote back. You don't owe me anything. None of this was ever about ruining her. It was about stopping the pattern. She replied. It stopped. She lost everything. Friends. Work. Even me. You did what her bosses, HR, and my dad never had the guts to do. You said no. I never heard from her again. By the time fall came around, our office had a new manager, Daryl, a guy from within the company. Calm, fair, respectful. The coffee machines were still going strong. We had monthly bean contributions. Even had a little coffee club sign-up sheet someone made for fun. The weird tension that had filled our halls when Carlene was in charge was gone. People laughed again. Meetings ended early. No more whispering, no more fear of being next on someone's list. As for me, I kept doing my work. Quietly. No need to stand out. No need for a gold star. Just the knowledge that I didn't let her get away with it. I never wanted revenge to look like this. But I also didn't want to carry the weight of silence anymore. Because sometimes all it takes is one person standing up, quietly, clearly, without fanfare, to stop years of damage from happening again. And in the end, the most powerful thing I did wasn't the coffee machine, or the folder of documents, or even the complaint. It was saying no to someone who thought she was untouchable. And proving she wasn't.